It looks like it's a green day when you look at the bubbles, but don't be fooled by the big green bubbles, because if you look at Bitcoin, we're still struggling to break that 65,000. We're at 64,910. And to be honest, I don't really want to talk about Bitcoin until at least we break here, which is the 67,300, and put in a higher high. And actually, I want to get back into the 75,000s before there's any action on Bitcoin, or before I want to talk about anything to do with Bitcoin. What I do want to talk about, though, is I want to talk about Solana. And the reason why I want to talk about Solana is because, in a nutshell, I think Solana is really, really cheap. It's been the most hated trade of the cycle. So if you look at what happened, it's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 red months in a row. And I think that what's happening there's an undercurrent now where Solana has actually been the most hated trade, but actually starting to wake up as a trade. I'm seeing a lot of big names actually starting to talk about Solana now. If you know anything about me, you know that I love the most hated trade, right? And I've caught Solana like once or twice before. This was at FTX when everybody really hated Solana. I caught Solana at $10, $11, and then a big trade at $13, which was one of the trades that I really publicized. And I want to talk about that trade again, because I kind of think that Solana is waking up, and I think when it does wake up, there's a lot of the trade that you can make money on. It's not only Solana. I mean, you can make a lot of money on Solana, but it's all the alphas and the betas, things like Jito, things like collector cards, things like all the other ones. We're going to talk about all of those today. We're going to talk about Solana. We're going to talk about why it might be a cheap trade, and why now might be probably the best time to actually be getting into that trade. So Monday morning show, Monday afternoon show, depending on where you are in the world. Hardest, are you ready to get the show on the road? All right. Nicholas, are you ready? Jan, are you ready to... Jan, you can't say hello from sunny UK when the Prime Minister resigns. You can actually say it, because I didn't actually like him very much, to be honest. All right, let's get the show on the road, guys. As I said, don't be fooled by the green bubbles, because Bitcoin is only at $65,000. There's a lot to cover, actually, when you talk about today on the news, etc., but I don't really want to cover all the news. I know there's a lot of news when it actually comes down to the war and the ceasefire negotiations. And apparently yesterday, the Iranians actually walked out of the negotiations because Trump threatened them. And there's a whole lot of sensitivities going on out there. Honestly, guys, the best place to follow what's going on in the war, or in fact, the best place to follow every big news announcement, is here on 247Wire. Why? This is a news service. It's not a human activated account. It's a scraper that scrapes all the places that news actually comes out from. So places like JD Vance, Trump, Michael Saylor. In fact, when you look at their tweet on Michael Saylor, what you can see, so that was the tweet around Michael Saylor. And when you look at the actual time that it took them to post, they were the first Newswire by 20 seconds to actually post that. So if you are looking for quick news, then just follow 247Wire. It's the fastest Twitter scraping service, or the fastest news scraping service that there actually is. In the meantime, speaking of Saylor, he has actually increased, he published an announcement that he actually bought $35 million worth of Bitcoin, was 520 Bitcoin, which is like a very low random number. I wonder why he actually did that. But more importantly, what they did this week was they actually increased their US dollar reserve by $300 million, which means that they are gearing up to have sufficient dividend coverage to be able to keep the market at ease, that they can cover up the dividends. Now, how did he raise that money? I guess he sold MSTR. And the problem is that he's selling MSTR at under the MNAV, which is dilutive to the MSTR holder. So Saylor in a bit of a pickle. If we look at the STRC, which is his main buying vehicle, now trading at $90.80. So still hasn't pegged to $100, which is not good for Saylor. So I think for now, I said it on my X earlier today. I said, yeah, I'll actually quickly call up that tweet. And I basically said, I mean, there's a lot of garbage on my X, but there's also some good stuff on my X. Every now and then I actually post something good. And I kind of said, I wouldn't be proud of the fact Saylor was gloating about his orange dots. And I said, look, I wouldn't be too proud of the fact that you have the orange dots, because it just means that you sold MSTR. And if you sold MSTR at under NAV, then it's dilutive to the MSTR holders. I've said it before. I think he should just go on holiday or do nothing until the storm passes. That's pretty much what I think. Anyway, let's get to the meat and potatoes of today's show. But before we do, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Ran. I'm here every single day. I bring you crypto love and crypto wisdom through the bull market, through the bear market. I've been here since 2017. Not doing shows every day, but I've been in the media since 2017. I've been doing shows every day, well, almost every day for wow, I can't even remember, like 5-6 years already. So yeah, not one of these channels that's going to disappear and come back when it's a bull market. I'm here every single day because I know that now is the right time to get the buying opportunities, and that's what I want to show you today. I think there's a buying opportunity upon us, and I want to actually show it to you. So if you are here, and I see there's like 600 of you, just smash the like button because it really helps me get distribution. I don't charge you for the alpha, but I do appreciate a like every now and then. 80, there we go, 80 likes. Always got to stay hydrated. It's a true story. How does you got to drink to shrink? That's what they say. You want to lose weight, you got to drink water, drink to shrink. All right, let's go. Let's talk about Solana and why I think that there's a massive trade to happen on Solana. So I want to start off by saying that this has been probably the most battered and hated trade of the cycle. We've had 9 down months in a row on Solana, literally 9 down months. What happened here? There was a spike on Binance to $180. Phew, imagine that. We've had 9 down months on Solana, and now what you're seeing is that Solana is actually starting to break out. So probably the best place to see the breakout is if you actually bring it down to the daily, and you got to remove that wick. But if you actually move and you look at the daily, you kind of say, hold on a second, there is a breakout on the daily here. You can see it over here. Probably it's at the beginning point of the breakout. What's wrong, Hardest?
No worries.
Yeah. So I've got a theory when it comes to Bitcoin that Bitcoin's going to suffer, but crypto is actually going to do really well. We'll talk about that theory on another show. But what you can see is it's actually bouncing back on a very important trend line over here, right? So you can see there's a very, very, very important trend line that it's actually bouncing off. Also, when I track that, I look at the charts, but then I look at sentiment. And if I look at sentiment on Solana was in the garbage. It was really, 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 really low. And now when I look at sentiment on Solana, you can see that the sentiment is starting to turn. Some of the bigger KOLs in the space, or some of the biggest influencers in the space, Ansem, for example, he's not talking about, I bought some Solana. That was June 15th, was about a week ago. You've got, he was actually very bearish about Solana for over a year. Just like a lot of other people were very bearish about Solana. And now he's like, hold on a second. Now this thing's starting to turn. If you look at Carl Samani, he basically, he's always been a proponent of Solana. He says, in response to Kevin from When Shift Happened, said, and just like that, the new Sol narrative is starting to spread like wildfire. We'll talk about that Sol narrative. But Carl Samani says it's not a new narrative. It's internet capital markets. Someone says, I'm buying at $35. If it ever gets there. In the meantime, though, Mert says, who's ready for round 3 of Solana? And a lot of people are actually calling it Solana Summer, believe it or not. So they're talking about Solana Summer. Now, I want to just quickly talk about the lay of the land, right? Because I think for the last couple of months, the narrative has been perpetuals trading. And when it came to perpetuals trading, Sol didn't have an answer to Hyperliquid. And the last 9 months have really been all about perps. The narrative everywhere. Perps, right? Now, I'll admit that Sol doesn't have an answer to Hyperliquid yet. I'm going to show you a bit later why they may have an answer to Hyperliquid coming up pretty soon. They don't have one yet, granted, but Jito is actually launching their perpetuals exchange, and I'll show you how the pieces actually fall together to actually give Solana a chance when it comes to perpetuals. So I'll concede that when it comes to the one narrative, which is perpetuals trading, now I brush it off as the one narrative. It is the most profitable narrative in crypto, other than Tether and stablecoins and stuff like that. But other than that, if you think about every other narrative, pretty much Solana is either the number 1 or the number 2 chain when it comes to every other narrative. And there are some amazing narratives which are happening right now, which are not perps, and that's why they have maybe not been in the limelight as much, but they're very, very good narratives. So look, if you think about like the tokenized equity narrative, which is a big narrative now, it's the real world asset narrative. It's about assets coming onto chain and being able to trade things like Tesla on chain and SpaceX on chain and Intel on chain. And that is when TradFi actually merges with the blockchain world. And that's a massive narrative. And Solana is one of the winners when it actually comes to that narrative. And I'll actually show you that over there. When it comes to collectible cards, and this is an amazing, a real world asset. It's people actually trading cards, but the cards are stored in a Fort Knox type of place, and you trade the token. That's called cards. It's collector Crypt. the protocol is called Collector Crypt. The token is called Cards, and that's doing incredible revenue, right? In fact, when you look at the app revenue on Solana, Collector Crypt is almost doing the same as Pump Fund is actually doing, right? So there's a lot actually happening on Solana, and I think the reason why it's been drowned out is because for the last couple of months, it's all been hyperliquid. And that's been one narrative. And I'll give it to hyperliquid. They're winning when it comes to perps. But there are a whole lot of other narratives that are happening in crypto. And that's where I think Solana has actually got a great chance of winning. So let's look at the actual data. And let me show you why I'm actually pretty excited, other than just looking at the charts. The first thing is, when I look at Solana, the first thing is, if you look at blockchain revenue, more than 50% of all crypto transactions are now happening on Solana. So if you take the entire crypto landscape, including hyperliquid, including real world assets, including more than 50% of all crypto transactions happen on Solana. You can't take that away from Solana. And if you look at it over there, you look at Solana's share of total blockchain revenue versus all other blockchains. I mean, I think the numbers are pretty astounding. So Solana's got 16% versus all blockchains. And in terms of the total share of transactions, Solana's got, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't give you a percentage, or it does give you a percentage. You just have to press the button. You can see that Solana has got, let me put my cursor, I can't read that number. It's 65% of all blockchain transactions are basically happening on Solana. So those people that tell you that Solana is dead, they're wrong. They're definitely wrong. If you look at app revenue, now this is super important because this basically says, where are the users? If I build an app on the blockchain, will I actually make app revenue? Now you can see that Solana has had for a while the biggest app revenue on this chain. So in the last month, they had $62 million, where Hyperliquid had $52 million, ETH had $38 million. And you can see that the shaded pink part is actually the biggest. So what you can see when you look at all crypto protocols, this is all crypto app revenue, whether it comes from a protocol or a chain or whatever else. What you can see is Tether's obviously the biggest, then Circle, etc. But then when you go to actual like apps, that's built on Solana. That's Collector Crypt is built on Solana. Zinc is built on Solana. So what you can see is that the majority of the apps that are generating the most revenue are actually built on Solana. Now, why is that important? Because if you're a builder and you want to go, imagine you are opening a store and you want to go into the store where there's a lot of users, right? Or the mall with a lot of users, you basically end up going onto Solana. So that's one of the big reasons why Solana is actually running. Now, I want to show you some other things here, right? So as I said, when it comes to perps, we can't beat Hyperliquid yet. Or Solana can't beat Hyperliquid yet. But when it comes to tokenized assets on chain, now this is a big thing because we're talking about tokenized stocks on chain. I want to show you the revenue so the green is Solana. And whatever other colors those are, on the week of 21st June, if you take all the tokenized trading equities volume by blockchain, right? This is according to Blockworks. If you take all the tokenized equities volume by, who's winning when it comes to tokenized equities? So Solana is winning when it comes to tokenized equities. Why? There's a protocol on Solana called Backpack. Backpack it's effectively an exchange. It doesn't really look like an exchange when you go into it, but it effectively is an exchange. And one of the things that it allows you to do is to trade stocks. So you can actually go here and trade stocks. Now, these stocks are backed one for one with actual, sorry, let me just refresh that, are backed one for one with actual stocks. This protocol Backpack, here's the price chart of Backpack. Insane, right? And again, it is a real world stock trading app on Solana. Now, I want to show you something pretty interesting, which links back to another story. So I don't know if you know this, but Binance effectively were supposed to get a MiCA license. Now, MiCA comes into Europe on the 1st of July. Binance was supposed to get a MiCA license from Greece. But Christine Lagarde allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly because I don't actually feel like being sued, but allegedly, Christine Lagarde herself blocked it. Now you ask yourself, why would Christine Lagarde want to block? She's from the European Central Bank. Why is she even involved in the regulation of exchanges in a specific country? Got to ask yourself that question. And why is she even allowed to get involved and to get her dirty paws into that? And the truth is that if you read behind the text, or you read behind the lines here, what you'll realize is that if you wanted to destroy liquidity and crypto in Europe, what would you do? You would deny the biggest player a license, right? And then if you did that and you wanted to launch, say, for example, a stablecoin CBDC, then how much easier is it to do it when you've removed the biggest player from the industry, right? And that's what's happening in the EU. So if you are a Binance user, don't worry, your funds are 100% safe. You will still be able to withdraw your money after the 1st of July. I'm not sure yet, and Binance is also not sure if you'll be allowed to trade, but this leaves a massive void, and Backpack might actually fill that void, right? So Backpack might actually fill that void while Binance is actually sorting out, because Binance is the world leader in tokenized securities. Binance is by far the world leader in TradFi being brought onto centralized exchanges. But if you're looking for a decentralized version of that, then the decentralized version of that is probably Backpack, or if you're looking at it by chain, as you see here, then the chain that it's happening on is Solana. Now I just unplugged myself, so I'm gonna plug myself back in again so I can actually hear myself, because otherwise I can't hear myself, and then I don't know if I'm too loud or too soft. But I'm sure in the comments, you guys would tell me if I was too loud or too soft, right? Hardest, you know they would, right?
You're fine.
I'm fine. Okay. Let us look over here. Yeah, so we know Christine Lagarde got her grubby paws involved into this. I'm not going to talk about it for a bit more. But again, you can see that there is money to be made on Solana. Just short Europe. I mean, yeah, Europe is a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I mean, just look how much money people made on Backpack. It was trading at 11 cents, now 6x in a bear market. Where else do you make 6x in a bear market? 6x in a bear market. Another one where you also could have made 10x in a bear market actually is cards. Or we've been holding cards for actually quite a long time. Actually, to be honest, I round tripped it from about here all the way right through to here. Why? I really believe in this protocol. Because people don't really, you talk about real world assets. What is a real world asset? Like, yes, okay, stocks are obviously real world assets. Bonds are also a real world asset. But collector cards are also a real world asset. And what collector or collector Crypt actually does is it is a Fort Knox type environment. In other words, you give them your card, they store it in a Fort Knox type environment. And then what they do is they give you a token that means that you can actually trade these Pokemon cards, or I mean, right now it's Pokemon cards, but soon you'll be able to do anything, right? So you see that these are all stored in the vault, and you can actually buy them and sell them using crypto assets. Now, this is a massive, massive, massive market, and that's why this protocol has actually been doing fantastically well. So you can see here, that's the price that's happening. But let's ignore the price for 1 second. Look at the fees, look at the revenue, look at how much it's been growing. Annualized fees, $60 million. Sorry, annualized revenue, $60 million. Can you believe it? It actually comes second to Pump Fund on Solana, but only like by a margin, like on 30 days. Here, like yesterday, or on the last 7 days, cards did 5 million and Pump Fund did $6 million. I think the reason why this doesn't have the same valuation as Pump Fund, which, by the way, does have a very big valuation now. The valuation is about 500 million fully diluted. Is because they haven't been clear on how they buy and burn tokens. They say they do, but they're not really clear as to exactly how they do it. So also a very cool token starting to get attention here. There are many others. When you talk about Sol, there's many others. There's Meteora. A lot of people talking about the value of Meteora. For those of you who don't know what Meteora does, they basically create liquidity pools, right? Like, you understand that whenever you're trading a token on a decentralized exchange, there is a liquidity pool that holds the actual token so that you can actually buy and sell into a liquidity pool. So for example, if I want to sell cards and I want to sell it for USDC, that comes from a liquidity pool which has cards and USDC in it. If I want to buy cards, I buy cards and I give the pool USDC. If I want to sell cards, I sell cards and I take USDC out the pool. That's called a liquidity pool. That's what Meteora does. Let me see if I can actually show you something around what Meteora does. Is there a thing here that talks about Meteora? I'll look for an interface that shows us what Meteora does in a couple of seconds. So it really looks like for the last couple of months, there hasn't been a narrative. But in fact, the only narrative that has been there has been perpetualized perps dexes. That's like the only narrative that's basically been going. And when it comes to perp dexes, Solana couldn't compete. And actually, to be honest, still can't compete. And the reason why I can't compete is because the time to finality, because Solana is more decentralized and hyperliquid, the time to finality on Solana was too slow. But that's actually being fixed, right? There is a, wrong. So there is a, let me show it to you here. There is a protocol upgrade, which is happening. It's called Alpenclo. Here we go. It's called Alpenclo. And what this protocol update actually does, it reduces the time to finality from 12.8 seconds to 150 milliseconds. Now, this should be coming out now, like Q3 or Q4 this year. That's when this protocol upgrade should be coming. When this protocol upgrade happens, then the perps exchanges can actually compete with Hyperliquid, but be much more decentralized. Coincidentally, at the same time that happens, you've got Jito, which is launching Jito X, which is their, oh, come on, Fortune. Which is launching Jito X, which is their perpetual, which is their perps exchange, right? And so I think that very soon we will have a perps DEX on Solana, which we can actually, which can actually compete them. Also, there is a Solana tokenomics upgrade proposal, which basically doubles the disinflation rate. If doubles disinflation rate means it makes the emissions slower, faster. So in other words, it slows down the emissions much faster. And they want to ship it this year if it actually passes. And I think it actually will end up passing. And so when you put all these things together, then you kind of go, hold on a second. Like, I think Sol has been a very neglected trade. And I think there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to Solana. There was a protocol that actually launched today on Solana. Here it is. I'll show it to you. It is, yeah. It's called Archium. And it's a, how do I explain it? It's a fully homomorphic encryption powered privacy solution on Solana. That's but basically what, if I were to describe it. Now that's a big mouthful, which I will break down for you in another show. But it's a protocol called Archium. Again, it plays into narrative. Now again, don't mess around with this token now because it's just launched. I don't like messing around with tokens that have just launched. Let the price settle. You weren't one of the early buyers. I don't think that there's a big opportunity there. By the way, if you wanted this whole show before the show, you could have just got it for free in our newsletter. It's called Good Morning Crypto. It's free. Everything I've just told you was in the newsletter. In fact, I did the show because I read the newsletter. That's actually how it worked. It's true hardest. I mean, you saw me working here before. I was actually playing much more table tennis. If you want that, it's free. Yeah, I'll show you. It's free here. Yeah, before. There we go. I was actually free newsletter over here. Free newsletter. Free newsletter and free Wire account. I mean, you literally gone to this Wire account. Twitter keeps rate limiting me. I don't know what to do. I'm going mad. It keeps rate limiting me. Basically wanting me. So now until tonight, I can't use my Twitter on my desktop, or I can't open new windows. Nikita, please help me, sir. Please. Yeah, very fast account when it comes to breaking news. It only breaks news of, like, so it doesn't break every news. Only news that really moves the markets. You see, there we go. Twitter's rate limited me. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it is the fastest account by far. Really the fastest account by far. War, Sailor, Trump, anything to do that, it is the fastest account by far. And they keep increasing the number of things that they're doing. So if you want to follow that, get that for free. If you want to follow me on Instagram, why would you follow me on Instagram? There's not much going on there. I suppose if you want to follow me, you can follow me. All right, chaps. Buy some Solana. Well, actually, let's quickly just look at the price. Bitcoin, 65,461. But I'm much more interested in Solana today. 74.26. Let's actually look at the bubbles. Looks like there's a little bit of like fire. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Venice up 10% today. WorldCoin up to 70 cents. I think Jito probably up to 80 cents. Let's have a look here. Irishman called Eigenlayer in his Discord, in Frontrunners. I swear, I think the Irishman must be so rich. He must be so rich now. His calls are so spot on. Let's see. I'm looking at my WhatsApp to see if anybody. All right, chaps. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.